Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sally Fletcher, Head of SSO and Digital, and I'm delighted to be hosting this session today. So today we're going to be talking about the topic of the future of business, adapting and thriving in a digital world. We're going to be looking at transformative project management strategies for achieving superior outcome, instilling new capabilities that enable adoption of data-intensive solutions, leveraging AI and automation systems and integration across platforms and functions, and lots of other fantastic information about how you adapt to the age of AI. Our speaker today, Lee, if you don't know him already, Lee Coulter, he's the Chief Transformation Officer at Chasey Partners. They're a QX Global Group company. A little bit about Lee. He brings an unparalleled wealth of experience and industry wisdom to the Chasey team. He's had roles such as CEO of Shared Services at Ascension, which is where I think I first met you, Lee, speaking at Shared Service Week Orlando. Also part of Kraft Foods, he's been the Chairman Emeritus at the HFS Sourcing Executive Council and has led GBS, ERP and operating model transformation initiatives and chaired events that have shaped definitely the shared service space, the intelligent automation and RPA industries. And so he's really the perfect person to talk to us about this topic. Before I hand over to Lee, a few notices on the console you see before you. So for those of you joining us for the first time on the webinar, you have a row of icons on the bottom. On the left-hand side, you've got your attendee chat. This is where you can post your questions and your comments. And we'd love to hear from you and understand where you are in this kind of operating model transformation. We'd also have the resource center on the right-hand side. This has additional resources related to the topic of the presentation. I've put in here a copy of the slides, so don't worry about taking screenshots or notes. You can sit back and relax. Those slides are there for you. Also a link to a report that SSON did with Chasey Partners on transformation in the age of AI, which is a fantastic companion piece to this webinar. And there's also a link to the previous webinar in this series that we did, which was on operating models in the age of AI, 5 essential considerations, and the slides that go with that. So there's some great content to digest and to share with your colleagues. Last but not least, we also have that question mark at the bottom and that head and shoulders icon. The head and shoulders icon is where you can learn more about Lee and connect with them on LinkedIn. So I think that is everything. Lee, let me hand over to you to lead us in our digital transformation webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sally. And again, I'm Lee Coulter with Chasey Partners, Global Head of Transformation. And actually, we'll cover a little bit about what exactly does that mean, transformation, because it's become an important concept. And let me get over here to slide management, So Chasey Partners, global consulting company, really focusing, we're about 17 years old. Now a part of QX Global, serving mid-sized and large companies. You can see some of our customers on the slide, and really been leading all sorts of transformation for the last 20 years. And I'm excited to bring to you a conversation today. And as Sally mentioned, we've got some resources available for you in the resource bucket. We've got a paper, and then it's a series of 3 webinars, and then a podcast, and potentially another paper after that. We'll see how it all goes. All of them connected to the same sets of ideas, and I'm going to touch on that as we go through our conversation today. So today we're talking about digital transformation with an eye toward becoming an AI-capable enterprise. In our last webinar, which you've got the link to, we focused on the operating model transformation that results in becoming an AI-capable or AI-ready enterprise. So what are we talking about transformation, and why are we talking about it? And a couple of things just worthy of note is that this is the slowest pace of change that we will experience for the rest of our lives. That's kind of alarming in a lot of ways. And AI has arrived. Its exponential growth has reached a point of production usefulness, right? So AI has been around for a very long time. Mathematically, it's been around since the 30s. It's just taken cloud computing and bandwidth and data and a whole bunch of other things to make it useful. And now it is here and disrupting everything across all of the business aspects. And what we're talking about here, and this is really important, is that we're not talking about how do we do one AI project, but how does your company become one that is structured to do hundreds of AI projects forever? And that's really the net here, is that the motivation has become, you have to become AI capable, or face disruption or even elimination. I mentioned in a workshop recently that it used to be that the average company was on the S&P 500 for 62 years. That was the average. Now it's less than 10. In fact, I think it's just over 6 years now. And that just gives you an idea of how rapidly disruption is actually occurring. So why are we here talking to GBS? And I think most of you coming from this world will have an intuitive sense of this. But the GBS group, despite the fact that we are often the whipping boys of business, we are also the place where there's a culture within a culture. We're a place that has been doing digital transformation for most of our existence. We're good with process, we're good with CI, we're good with tech, we're good with CX, we understand governance, and all of these things are really, really essential when we start talking about digital transformation or transformation of any kind. And GBS has been leading the change in businesses for the last 30 years, and now is no different. So before we jump into the meat here, and I've got 9 things that I'm going to cover that I would call the meat, it's important that we talk a little bit about setting the stage. And a part of that, I wanted to share with you a result. So at the SSOW in Houston, in the workshop, we gathered some data that said 60% of the folks were implementing an AI pilot right now, and 20% would be implementing a pilot within the next 12 months. So this just gives you a sense that this is very timely. Folks really are thinking about this and actually doing things about it. And what I'm one of the big points I want to make here is that doing one project is great. Everybody needs to do their first project. However, resulting in an enterprise that's capable of adopting AI in every function, in every geography, for the rest of time, that's what we're talking about. So transformation as a discipline, this is so important. 15 years ago, when somebody did a transformation, it was like oh my gosh, look at that, they're doing a transformation. And you could you could draw a circle around it. And now there are so many things going on around the enterprise that meet this definition of converting one thing into another through thorough and dramatic change in form, function, and appearance, that I thought it was worthwhile just to say that I think in this world today, transformation is a near continuous process for companies that want to remain competitive and viable into the future. So today's webinar, as mentioned, the one that you have the link to is the operating model transformation webinar. Today is about digital transformation. So why do companies transform, right? What are what's the sum total of all the reasons that there could be for businesses to transform? Well, meeting new market dynamics, adapt to buyer and supply chain, and I should put competitor behavior as well. Obviously, specific business objectives. If you bought something, you merged with a company, you divested something, and of course, effectiveness and efficiency. And taking advantage of significantly more advanced technology. I was surprised to find out how many billions of lines of COBOL are still in production. And it's just remarkable to me. And so there's always significantly better software out there for almost every part of your company. And all transformations that I've been involved with and talked to people about involve some combination of these things. We're going to attend to new market behavior or competitive behavior, buyer behavior, while we're doing some technology, and it's going to save us some money. So that's why we do transformation. Now, let's get a little bit more specific. When we say digital transformation, this term in my mind was so overused that it almost kind of became meaningless. So I want to clarify here when I say digital transformation, it is at the strategy level. This is not simply a series of projects. This is at the strategy level, and we'll talk about that when we talk about integration at the program management level. It's continuous. This is not a thing that we declare that we're done. Yay, we finished our digital transformation. No, it's a decision to do this for the end of till the end of time. Obviously, technology is involved, but really focusing on cloud, data, and AI. So these are fundamentally more advanced technologies. This is really important. At its center, it has customer orientation. So this is a hallmark of real digital transformation is you are really becoming customer centric and focusing on CX, which is a thing that GBS often is very good at. And then it's really it's focusing on the permanent components that make this a feature of your organization because you're committing to doing this forever into the future. So there's some really important aspects of culture that have to change in order to allow you to embrace digital transformation. And we're going to dive more deeply into that. So, critical to success factors for digital transformation. And these are not pulled from the air. Each of these has some research behind it. I didn't attribute it all here, but obviously it has to be led and the culture has to be embracing of this kind of change. It has to have really, really clear, simple to relate to vision with not like a whole scorecard, but like three things or four things that are measurable that everybody can get behind. Probably one of the most important components is integration with existing strategy. And we'll talk about that because deprioritization of less important things is one of the most difficult things that a business can do. And obviously, getting to love failure and to celebrate failure. This is definitely new territory and new behavior for organizations. And now we'll spend a little bit of time looking at new talent and new skills that you've maybe never heard of that are going to become just a part of everyday life. And a lot of talent acquisition organizations and just organizations in general are wrestling with how do we bring the kind of talent in that we need. And the war for talent that is AI relevant is really it's very true. So let's set a couple of more us. What does it mean when we say that we're AI ready or AI capable? Well, it means that we have a demonstrated capability for leadership buy-in, right? So this means that we would see it at the board level, we would see it on the overall corporate scorecards, we would see like education and immersion sessions, we would see leadership talking about the case for change in town halls and in any time that they address people. Governance, and we're going to dive a little bit more deeply into governance because this world of AI requires governance, and a lot of organizations, I've got some data on this, are not very good at governance, and this is an important component that needs to be installed adequately in order to be able to be AI ready or AI capable. Innovation, not a surprise, I think, to anybody. And of course, talent, we mentioned that earlier. We'll dive a little more deeply on that. And I would encourage folks to go in the operating model transformation webinar. I dive more deeply into talent. I bring some of that back here today. So if you've already seen that, I'll be referencing that. And at the very back of the slide deck for today, I included the 5 most essential slides from the slide deck from the first webinar. So those will be in an appendix here and also available in their full form in the resource provided. All right. So there's a couple of nuances when you add AI readiness. So we could go do a digital transformation program, initiative, strategy, whatever you want to call it. We could do that without including AI. And we could also do it to the extent that we do like one AI project. But when we say AI readiness, we're adding that to the list of design criteria. As we design this program, as we do the from and the to of what is our company today and what does our company need to look like tomorrow, I've now added specifically AI readiness as an outcome to that transformation. What is really important to know, and we'll dive more deeply into this: data, data, data. That'll be one of the areas that we dive a little more deeply in here. Skills. Um, a lot of new skills that start with the word data, no surprise. And things that you haven't heard before, like model drift analyst, prompt engineer. There's so many new jobs that are being created in order to enable AI being adopted in so many different ways. That becoming highly adept at introducing new skills into the enterprise is essential. Applications and use cases. I'm going to show a couple of slides on technologies that are available just in the infrastructure space. It is mind-boggling. And so many pieces of software good at so many different things. What are they good for? What kinds of problems do they solve? Well, this is actually a specific capability that your organization will need to develop and embrace. Governance, I talked about that already, and we'll dive more deeply into that. And for culture, I put the most important one first. And I think when we start talking about business process for AI readiness, I think maybe we'll dive a bit more deeply into embracing failure, failure celebration, fast failure. These are the things that honestly, despite people's overt statements that, hey, we're going to celebrate failure. Then when the first failure happens, people are like, yeah, you need to go to a different department. And if you do it again, maybe you just don't belong here. And there's a cultural rejection to celebrating failure. There's a lot of resources out there on innovation, culture, and an exponential. I'll put a plug for Salim Ismail, who has done a nice job through his exponential organizations work. If you want more information on that, put it in the questions, and I'll make sure to send you some as we close out the questions. So a lot of these things fail. Why? Probably not that surprising that if we don't say exactly what we're trying to do and have a clear vision and goal, then we're probably not going to hit it. And the second part of that, not integrated with top priorities, we'll be talking a little bit more about that. But this is where organizations fail to stop doing some things. When you add something like AI readiness to your digital transformation program design requirements, there are other things that are going to have to stop somewhere in the business. You are adding significantly difficult new things to your list of to-dos. And one of the most common failures is a failure to not integrate with your other top priorities. Obviously, resistance to change and change management. If your organization does not do it formally, that can be a liability. Skills and training, poor technology integration. This is an important point. So even when moving into AI, it's not like you are capable of becoming a digital native disruptor startup. You have, in most cases, between 2,000 and 6,000 applications that run your business today, and you're not turning them all off. And so bolting together the new with the legacy is hard work. It's really hard work, and it takes specialists and investment. Um, People begin to love the tech. They're like, wow, this is so cool. And kind of lose sight of what problems it can really solve for the business. And um, it becomes lost in its ability to deliver results. and data. I've been talking about data. I did my first production AI implementation in 2017, and it took 3.5 years. It was unbelievably educational for me as I got to spend a tremendous amount of time with the different teams and really got to understand data. And we'll pick apart a few pieces of that, things like velocity, veracity, explainability, understandability. These are all really important components of data, which really truly is the new gold. A quick story: there's an aircraft or an airline out there that they had some consultants come in and they looked at their data and they said, your data is extraordinarily valuable and you should put it on the balance sheet and treat it as an asset. And the CFO was like, I don't think I'm doing that. How about we set up a separate company and we will give it the data. 5 years later, the data holding company was worth 3 times what the airline company was worth. So I'm not going to reveal the name of that airline because I'm not sure I have leave to do so. But that just goes to show you that the data inside the enterprise is really truly the new gold. All right. So if we're integrating AI readiness with a digital transformation program, or we are taking an existing digital transformation strategy and we're now going to add AI readiness to the mix. Here are the 3 big buckets of stuff that you have to know, or stuff that you have to do, or stuff the organization has to do. So it's really there's obviously some technology specific stuff, and some non-trivial stuff. As we look at that, you'll have a better appreciation for it. Skills, data, governance at 3 different levels. And this is going to be a real challenge for a lot of organizations because already they don't do it very well. And then program. Managing a transformation is already really hard. Now make it a digital transformation, and now make it digital transformation that includes AI readiness for it. So you'll see here again, integration with business process. There are obviously some themes coming through here. And performance management. Are you actually delivering the kinds of results that you set out to? All right. So I don't know how technical folks are that are attending here, but I included a couple of slides. I'm going to bounce here and then I'm going to bounce back to give folks a sense of when we talk about typical systems infrastructure. It has far fewer layers and far less diversity in what is in those layers. So this is I think it's a good diagram, kind of showing all the way from the software through to computing. What are the layers that are involved here? And you'll see a few things in there like bare metal server. What does that mean? Hypervisor. What does that mean? What does it mean to integrate edge computing or endpoint computing? What exactly is an AI-enabled workload? And these are all things that when you start to look at the technology that's involved here, it's a different language. Now, keep in mind, we're moving from the deterministic world to the probabilistic world. And it's not so, it shouldn't be surprising that there's a whole bunch of different stuff when you make the shift from I'm calculating what has happened as opposed to I'm going to predict what is likely to happen. It's just very, very different, and dealing with the enormous data sets, enormous training computation, and a whole host of monitoring tools that monitor the behavior of AI models. And I should have said this at the beginning. I do want to make sure to make a point here. Gen AI has become all the rage in the last couple of years just because we had enough data to train it to the point of high levels of usefulness sooner than people had anticipated. That is the tip of one branch of the tree of AI. And I probably should have included a diagram. Maybe I can do that in the responses when we answer everybody's questions at the end of this. That kind of shows the families of AI. So when I'm talking about AI, I'm talking about a dozen or so major fields of AI: deep learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, neural networks, machine learning, computer vision, etc., NLP. That are highly consumable and useful to the enterprise. So there's a bunch of stuff in AI that isn't that useful, but there's about a dozen or so. And Gen AI is one of them. So when all of the stuff I'm talking about here, it is not Gen AI specific. It is AI as a useful family of technologies for the enterprise. So this is a fun chart because this is a partial list, and I like the way that that Intel actually stacked this up. This is AI infrastructure to get you from the hardware all the way up to autonomous um, error detection, problem resolution at the application layer. Um, and this is a very much a partial list, and in fact, it's not even a terribly new list. When you're looking at this and you're like, oh, I've never heard of most of these companies, it kind of just brings to mind that this is a world that is um, dramatically different and complex and moving really super fast. And another piece of data that I thought I would share is we asked some questions about innovation and adoption of new technology. And the organizations that were in the workshop, 44% of them said that they struggled with innovation because they did not have a focus, right? So their innovation was happening all over the place. Can you imagine if this is your application landscape? Can you imagine how hard it would be? So when it comes to establishing vision and direction and KPIs that matter, it just becomes super important because distraction in AI is unlike distraction in anything else. Um, I was on the advisory board of an AI services company, and they told me story after story after story of client engagements where the original assumptions of what they were going to do were a complete failure, right? So the assertion that this data should generate this kind of result was like, nope. But while they were there, they were like, oh, but this data appears to have ability to predict this. And you just start chasing rabbits. And then that one fails. But oh, look at this. I think that might work. And then you chase that rabbit and you chase that rabbit. And you can spend $10 million chasing rabbits in just a couple of years pretty easily. So the infrastructure, big important component. AI skill families. In the lower left side of the screen is a chart that is also at the back of this deck, but is also in the deck from the first webinar. We try to put some common things that we hear in terms of why people are struggling to have the right kind of AI talent. But I also wanted to give a sense of kind of some new families of AI skills that are going to be essential in your company. And these will be both technical skills and non-technical skills. And it's really important to understand kind of what are those families in both spaces. When you're a data wrangler, that's not necessarily a technical role. A prompt engineer may not be a technical role. So as you're looking at talent, this is one of those things. Really need to have your talent acquisition and your HR function at the table because it's going to be a balance. In fact, I made a note here. We asked the question, how is your company solving the fight for AI talent? 61% said it's a balance, almost equal between hiring people and developing people. So you're fighting out there in the economy, and you're developing folks, which is a separate challenge altogether, is development of new skills. And I'm going to point at the gig economy there because that's going to come up again. There's a tremendous workforce available for hire. If you're not familiar and you haven't learned to use the gig economy, it will become essential. So we have an AI adoption framework for talent management and cultural transformation. And it may seem like a silly thing to say, well, we're not going to have AI researchers. Well, if you're really going to be serious about becoming AI ready, then yeah, you're probably going to have people that are actually doing research in AI on staff and in your company. Now, are they there via a consulting company? Are they there via a gig economy engagement? Are they there via, as on a temporary basis, or are they full time? Don't know. But believe it or not, to really truly solve your business problems, you might need folks all the way at the level of research to understand what kinds of all the AI encompasses about 220 different mathematical algorithms that were developed in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it's only recently that we've had the computing, capability and the data to make the stuff work. But people are coming up with new stuff now, and some really, really fascinating stuff, sparse data, cold starts, and all sorts of interesting ways to make AI effective sooner. So I mentioned data. I don't know if I can make this a big enough banner. And I put Chief Data Officer there at the top because if you don't have a Chief Data Officer, doing a lot of the rest of the stuff that you need to do for your data is going to be hard. And it is a way to ensure that your business begins to get control of its data. Because I guarantee you, if you hire a Chief Data Officer, they're going to start dealing with your data, and they're going to propose investments that will result in curated data, cleansed data, the true data. They will say, well, we need to define what data is valuable, and how do I define it? Master data dictionary, master data management. These things become really, really super important. And veracity, a word most people are not familiar with. It's a measure of the time-based truthfulness of data. And I'm not sure I have time to go terribly deep into it, but it basically says that as a piece of data becomes older, its truthfulness deteriorates. It like literally gets old and shrivels up. And this is actually it's a big problem for enterprises that think they have really good data and they find out it's 3 years old and its veracity is zero. It has no truthfulness and they can't use it. I put a special mention in here for AI ops because if your IT organization doesn't know about AI ops and isn't moving through the DevOps and AI ops program, it is a way for your AI or your IT organization to become AI savvy pretty quickly. And the things that they will do using AI to actually manage IT make them way more capable of managing AI when it comes to business AI solutions. So I put a note here just because it's a big field. I could do a whole separate webinar on it. I'm not gonna, but it definitely, if you're not familiar with it, it warrants investigation, understanding, and encouragement of your organization to adopt. Governance. So let me start with some data we gathered at our last event. We asked folks like, do you do governance well? And if not, why not? And the why not was 56% of folks said that they are so risk averse that governance slows everything down to the point that it comes to a stop. And 25% said we just don't even do governance, don't even know what it is, not sure how to do it. So when it comes to digital transformation that includes AI readiness, you have nested governance layers, which means you really need to learn how to do governance well. And governance is an informal method of management that involves a lot of diverse stakeholders. And it's linked to, not surprisingly, your business goals, your strategies, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to underline this word here, prioritization, because my goodness, learning how to prioritize, deprioritize, and actually stop doing things is the stuff of governance, and it's really difficult. So the stack here is at the business level, you have to connect your business goals, your investments, and your scorecards. And then you have to go to AI, and then you have to go to production AI. Once an AI system is in production, it requires a different kind of governance, like things like bias drift or bias and drift that make it very different. You know, IT system doesn't start behaving differently tomorrow. Well, AI systems sometimes do that, and we don't know why. And so we have to detect it and manage it when it does. I'm sure everybody on the webinar today has heard about ethical AI. So what does that mean? And so I wanted to put this out here for everybody to understand the major components of ethical AI. It is a very broad space. Everything from human rights to job replacement to civil rights to autonomy and transparency and discoverability and understandability. There is a ton that fits into the ethics of AI and that will drive you toward ethical AI. I was talking with the chief AI ethicist of the Department of Homeland Security, and I asked her if there was a standard model for ethical AI, and she laughed at me. So I thought that was pretty funny. But to say that it must be on the agenda of things to solve and figure out as you go through this process is absolutely yes. Security and compliance. I'm offering or wanted to bring everybody's attention to a frame of thinking for this that Gartner has put forth. I think it's a pretty decent frame, certainly a way to start thinking about it. Trust, risk, and management for AI. But at the end of the day, you're going to have your controller, your the chair of the audit subcommittee, the lead partner of your external audit firm. All these people are paid to reduce risk for investors, customers, employees, and regulators. And they have four concerns. And so if you just understand the four things and the four different populations, you can engage with each of these groups and develop an appropriate security and compliance strategy that enables you to still actually make progress with AI. I know that I've got a lot of material here and I'm trying to get through it, folks. So I apologize. I'm kind of zooming here at the end, but I want to make sure, I'm not sure we're going to actually end up with time for questions, but we'll see if we can't leave time for one. Integration with business process. I've made this point a couple of times. Digital transformation cannot stand alone. You have to talk to all of your constituents. It has to be represented in your go-to-market processes. Management and teams have to all be on the same page, singing from the same hymnal. And your data and your systems need to all be correlated with those as well. So we look at all the areas where we need to collaborate, integrate, and unify. And the graphic on the right side really tries to tell that story. Change management and culture. This is a big shift for folks, and I don't want to underestimate that. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands that we understand change management a lot more than we did. And the three components that are most relevant to that are learning, leadership, and the processes that you use. Having KPIs. This is a place that you could absolutely get lost. Most organizations fail because they get overly complex in their description of their scorecards. Finding 3 or 4, maybe 5 high-level components that you're going to move the needle here. Earnings per share, employee engagement, net promoter score. Like that's enough. Like that's enough. Um, and then break it down underneath of that. But I wanted to provide everybody with a sense of, what's a framework to think about how we might establish KPIs. So I've got 3 slides here on the top takeaways, and I'm just going to hit them really quickly. IT specific, it is complex and different. Prioritize where you're going to start. In your skills and talent, make it a balanced effort. In your data, have a chief data officer. Put a value on your data. Automatically, if it becomes a valuable asset, it will get managed and treated as a valuable asset. In governance, it must be integrated. It can't be a standalone thing. It must be integrated with how the business already operates. In AI ethics, there are frameworks out there that will help you get started. You don't have to boil the ocean, but you do have to get started. Get some help. Rent a partner. Start in a simple little place, but get started. When you're in the security and compliance world, my biggest recommendation is pick use cases that have low concerns here so that you don't trigger the immune system of the business right out of the gates. And understand as well that there is no perfect answer. And you can also hire people to do some of this work for you. Program management, integration, which is what blended, not added means, and customer centric. We saw that in the very beginning. Change management, continuous learning and behaviors. We know that immersion and learning are super important for the AI readiness. And then for your KPIs, go back to the why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this for your customer? And be super strategic and deliberate and choose just those few that are really essential. All right, that was a lot. And I appreciate everybody's forbearance. And I don't know, Sally, if we have even a nanosecond left for a question or two.
No, let's take a couple of questions because lots came in. So thank you, Lee. That was incredible. So much information. I made lots of notes. So yeah, really appreciate you taking the time to put together that fantastic presentation. And as Lee said, it is available in the Resource Centre to download. So don't worry if you didn't catch everything. You can re-listen or you can download those slides. So I'll just take 2 questions. One came in from Dominic, and it was really around why governance is so hard. So, you've mentioned a few times governance is one of the trickiest things, partly because people feel like it slows digital transformation down. But what are any other reasons that governance is tricky?
Reasons that governance is tricky. Number one is that it is not a representation of command and control. So the people in there do not have hire, fire, and decision authority in the thing that they are governing. So that's number one. Number two is they are not remotely experts in the thing that they are governing. They're brought in because they have a contribution from an expertise that they have, which is relevant to governing the thing that is being governed. So if in the case of governing AI, an AI model, you might have people from wildly divergent backgrounds within the company in finance and operations and customer service and HR, wildly different backgrounds. So we've got people that are not super subject matter experts around the thing, and then they don't have direct authority. They do have formal authority as a group. And then typically in governance, people are looking for coalition building and answers or decisions that come with a unanimous recommendation from the governance team. And so for these reasons, things can get slow because you have to bring people up to speed. People have to become familiar with how they exercise the power that they've been asked to wield as a governance team. And that is a collective and an individual task that takes some time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes complete sense. It's definitely a really tricky task to do and something at SSON that we get asked about a lot. And just one last question I'll just slip in before the end. It came in from Diane. And she was saying that the pace of change is so fast in terms of technology, that she's struggling to get leadership buy-in for starting with AI implementation and even looking at Gen AI, because her leaders are looking
Oh,
to see like, what's next? Is this going to take off? Is it going to be,
yeah.
a blockchain? What would you say to that?
So I would say three things. And number one is that there are organizations out there that, for relatively inexpensively, will come in and do what I call a shock and awe presentation. They will tell you about 50 companies who all want to disrupt your company into non-existence. And these are serious businesses with hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of investment behind them that are moving really, really fast. So when leadership can't quite like come to grips with the fact that this is real, like these are actual names of founders that have patents, that have they have a history of being successful and disrupting other things, and they're literally coming for you. Like it's really helpful to get leadership to wake up a little bit when they can have that conversation. The other one is immersion, education and immersion sessions. It's really, really essential and really hard to do. So I will give the last strategy is you must hire somewhere on the exec team an AI savvy leader, somebody who really actually can become the infection that can lead the board and the management team. And it's no surprise that let me see, I have it here. The where is it? Yeah. So failures, 48% of all the digital transformation failures are because of exec team awareness and support. So that really tells you right there that this is really hard, and a lot of companies just literally fail at it, and that's unfortunate. But don't lose the energy. Keep fighting the good fight.
Brilliant. That's a perfect note to end on it. Thank you, Lee. Thanks for taking the time to put together that presentation. And thank you to all of our audience that attended. If you didn't get your question answered, do not worry. You can put that question in the attendee chat, and I will be downloading and passing them on to Lee, and we will get back to you. And we will see you for the next webinar, which is in November. We'll be meeting again with the Chasey Partners team in November on that. And you can also download the Age of AI report that I talked about. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you.